Murdoch. I am a practitioner here at Center for Spiritual Living Delaware, and it is my honor to lead us in our reading today. The theme for May 2021 is Holy, Holy Uprising. The topic for today is Say Their Names. That is, we are honoring and name the one and the many for having blessed us. If you were here earlier, you heard for our meditation, you heard Brenda say this quote. It bears repeating. Thomas Troward said, "The Bible calls the divine being by a variety of names. Each of them implies all the others, since each suggests some particular aspect of that, which is the all-embracing unit, the everlasting one, which cannot be divided, and any one aspect of which therefore convey to the instructed mind the suggestion of all the others." That's from Thomas Troward. And Ernest Holmes wrote this about the ones who have transitioned. It is human to grieve over the loss of dear ones. We love them and cannot help missing them. But a true realization of the immortality and continuity of the individual soul will rob our grief of hopelessness. We shall realize that they are in God's keeping and they are safe, that their life still flows on with the currents of eternity. We shall feel that we have not lost them. They have only gone before. And that's from the Science of Mind textbook. Now let us do our part to make a difference for now and future generations by affirming together our affirmation. I rise up and lead. I am someone's answered prayer. Let's do that again. I rise up and lead. I am someone's answered prayer. And breathe that in. Wow, what a statement. And at this time, it is my honor and my pleasure to bring back our beloved spiritual director, Reverend Dr. Kathleen Johnson.
Oh, Carolyn, that was just lovely. Thank you for bringing us into that space of knowing who we are and what we're up to today. Holy, Holy Uprising. That's the topic for that's the theme for the entire month. Rising up wholly, completely, totally into that holy space of consciousness, of oneness, that place of interconnectedness. And so as a leading edge organization, a spiritual organization, we are part of a grand organization, the Centers for Spiritual Living, and part of a greater movement with other organizations called New Thought. And what we hold in common is that we teach that there is only one universal mind, one universal intelligence, one universal presence that is the source of all that exists, and that we are not only of it, but we are unified with it. I love what our teachers tell us, and what I know to be true is that the entirety of that presence is centered everywhere because it's indivisible. So right here where I am, right where you are, is the very power, presence, life, vibrancy, creative nature of the Most High God. And therefore our word has unmentionable. I mean, just in amazing power. And so we embrace that power and we use it for good. The CSL global vision has all different aspects to it, but the one that I'm focusing on for today is the one that speaks to the idea of seeing humanity living and growing as one global family that respects and honors the interconnectedness of all life. And that we as a CSL community have the spiritual tools and the spiritual philosophy to realize that vision of one global community by having a holy uprising into the field of oneness consciousness. We have the tools to support that. So let's have it right here and right now. Let's claim it for ourselves. And so today we rise up into that oneness consciousness by entering that field of love and connection with others, by naming, telling the stories, and celebrating those who have contributed to our lives. And because we're all interconnected, we're all contributing, those who have gone before us and those who are sharing this planet with us, those who are willing to take the lead and take us into those higher frequencies of living. And this is done in many ways in our culture. We have our services and so on, but when we honor those of the past, we have celebration of life services, memorial services throughout the world of one kind or another. We have monuments, memorial monuments, such as what's present at 9/11 and the Vietnam monument that's down in Washington, D.C. that lists all the names, right? All the names are there. It's not just this many people died, but there's an attention to names of individuals. There are quilts, the AIDS quilts, and the holidays, like the Dia de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead, celebrated by our Latinx brothers and sisters. All of these are ways of saying the names, telling the stories, and honoring those who have gone before and contributed and enriched our lives. So the Say Their Names campaign that has been brought forward as part of the Black Lives Matter movement originated in 2014 from the Say Her Name campaign that was adopted from an African-American forum that brought that forward and knew the importance of naming the names of those who have been affected by police brutality and telling their stories, knowing that this was the way in which you open the heart of compassion. Because think about it, statistics, numbers, it's all up here. It's all intellectual. But when we name someone's name and we tell someone's story, something happens within us. We feel connected with them. Our hearts open. We feel compassion, and we are spurred into an action of some kind or another, whether it's prayer or donations or whatever it is. We're spurred into action because we want to be part of making a difference. So hearing and seeing a story of an actual living, breathing person then has an effect on us. Think of the case of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. Saying their names and knowing their stories brought a sense of discomfort that, like on what's going on in terms of racism and a desire to change that. It really moves us into a place of wanting to be the difference that we came here to be. So saying each other's names then is a powerful way to make connection. That's why I had Michelle read all the names of those who were on Zoom with us today. And for those of you who are on Facebook, I invite you to put your names in, in the chat, in not the chat box, but the comments. Put your names in there. Say your names. Let us know who you are. Just being a number, so often we look at the Facebook and we just see a number there, but it's so much more valuable to realize these are real people here. These are living, breathing people. And then make connections with each other, because we're all part of the greater community of life. The metaphysical meaning of name, I have a metaphysical dictionary from the Unity movement, and I love to refer to it every once in a while to look up the metaphysical meaning of things. So the metaphysical meaning of name has to do with nature or a state of consciousness. So when we say in the name of Jesus Christ, when we hear that, we're talking about in the nature of, when we say that the names of others in this, Jesus the Christ, Buddha, Krishna, Gandhi, Martin Luther King, what happens in saying that name is it brings up the story of that individual and what they stand for. And it lives in us in a whole different way than just, again, reading about numbers or statistics. And notice that in biblical stories, and this happens in the TM movement and other movements as well, is that when someone reaches another level of consciousness through spiritual practice, through their prayers and their meditations and their contemplations, they get a new name. Abram became Abraham. Saul became Paul. Jesus became Jesus the Christ. And actually, we talk about Christ being a principle that is present, the divine potential that resides within us all. And so those names have meaning. And there's a lot more attention these days, I understand, to having baby naming ceremonies. And I encourage you to take a look at the meaning of your own name if you haven't already. You can look it up online. I found out mine means purity. Kathleen stands for purity. And Michelle's was something to the effect of like God. One who is like God. Dan's, it has to do with sincerity and generosity and things like that. So it's helpful to realize that our names stand for more than just a name. It stands for a body of consciousness that we bring forth onto the planet. I'd like to share with you the story of Robert Morales, age 15, who was killed by some government officials in a city called Ciudad Bolivar in Venezuela. This was back in the 1990s. It's a very powerful example of the power of name and also the power of story. So this young teen was playing ball with stones. That's what they had available to them. They were poor, and so they were throwing stones back and forth to each other, and his stone ended up going through the window of a military bus that was going by. One of the officers got off and shot him without any question, just shot him. He died. And this was not an unusual thing in those days. In those days, the youth were considered criminal and to be extinguished by the government officials. They were just numbers to them. They were not, individuals. And so that's what happens with the numbering and not naming people and not knowing their stories, is it can be very dehumanizing. So what happened then is that because of this targeting of the youth, 500 in the city alone, 500 youth had been killed by 1992. And I'm not sure what their time frame was, but this is what I read in the story. And Robert's mother, Maria Morales, decided enough was enough. And his name and his story began to spread through the media and through the city. His story became well known, very similar to George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. He became very well known, his life became very well known. And as a result, his mother and some other adults organized, along with a lot of adolescents, an organization called Nonviolent Action Group. And I took this story from the Engaging Nonviolence curriculum that I'm co-facilitating right now through the city of Wilmington. It really touched me and spoke to me about what we're talking about today. So this is what the group did. They decided to do demonstrations that they called the Carnival of Life. They dressed up in costume, they played their instruments, they danced, they sang, they did a whole variety of different things. This was their protest. But then they also spoke to the issues of the targeting of youth and wanting a change. They held public debates. They were so engaging that even the police began to join them and dance with them and play with them. And what happened over time then was that the government paid attention and policy began to change. And pretty soon, Ciudad Bolivar was investing in its youth, in the youth's education, in sports, in employment opportunities, in recreation, in art. Yes, in the arts too, Shaya and Lisa, in the arts. And what happened then is a true change in the environment of that particular city. So this story to me speaks so beautifully of not only the nonviolent movement as a way to create change, but the creativity that can take place and the effectiveness that has in creating change. And a lot of it, the key was that that there was a focus on one person, someone, Robert Morales. They said his name and they told his story. So as we say the names of those lives who have touched us, as we remember and reflect and honor the divine within them, we are allowing their story and their love to live in us and to enrich our lives. So I've put together a water ceremony, and throughout the world, there are what they call libation ceremonies. So I looked at a couple online, but I thought, let's focus on water, because water, think about it. Our bodies are 60% water. The earth is 71% water on its surface. Water is vital to life. It's vital to survival. And it is a symbol of the continuity of life. This particular tradition, the water ceremony, comes from West Africa. And so I want to honor our West African brothers and sisters for bringing this beautiful idea to our country. And so pouring the water in the ceremony symbolizes the purification and the nourishment of our souls. So I'd like you to feel that as I pour the water. You can see the water is over here. I have this beautiful plant that I got from Kelly that is a fuchsia that is, you can't see it, but it's here on the table. And that's where I'm going to be pouring the water as we move through the ceremony. So basically, I'm going to be inviting you, first of all, this is a participatory. So if you have a glass of water, that's great, because as I pour the water, I invite you to drink your water and participate. But I also invite you to participate by saying ashe when it's time to say ashe. I have all different segments different statements that I'll be making. And then I'll say Ashe, and I want you to repeat Ashe right after me, and you'll hear Michelle doing the repeat. Pardon? Oh, Ashe means in African means and so it is, or make it so. It's the same kind of idea. And I'm going to be also asking you to say names out loud. You know, you can all do it because you're in your own separate places, but to say names out loud of those who've touched you in these different segments, and it'll be personal to you. I also, okay, I already told you about drinking the water while I'm pouring, if you have water with you. Okay, so these are honoring statements. Let us begin by placing both of our feet on the floor, planting ourselves like trees in the soil of Mother Earth, just in intention, sending energy roots all the way down. But this time we're going to go to the water table below us, putting our roots into the water table below the earth. On the exhale, I'd like you to release all distractions and all tension into the water table below where it's dissolved. And then on the inhale, breathe in the purity and nourishment of the water into your body temples, and just see it as this beautiful fluid light that comes. And with each exhale, you're releasing that which doesn't serve you. And with inhale, you're inhaling the nourishment and the purity of the water, purifying the body temple, purifying the mind, purifying your emotions, feeling more and more fluid, flexible, and vibrant with each inhale. So just do about 3 inhales and exhales. And so let us begin by honoring and recognizing the one source called by many names. And so I invite you to say the names of God that come to mind for you, of the one life. Allah, Yahweh, love, peace, joy, intelligence, universal mind, grace, beauty, harmony. Say the names. Ashe.
Ashe.
I'm just going to hold on to the water. So let us now honor, recognize, and celebrate the coming together of our spiritual community. Let us say the names of those in our spiritual community who have touched us. Say their names. Ashe.
Ashe.
And so I now pour water, life-giving water, in their honor. Let us now honor, celebrate, and recognize the spiritual teachers that came before us. You know, we in our spiritual community, we recognize and celebrate these teachers often by talking about them, whether it's Ernest Holmes or Thomas Troward or Emma Curtis Hopkins or any of the other spiritual teachers. We do their quotes quite often. So what I'd like you to do now is to remember the men, the women, the people from different backgrounds and cultures, religions, indigenous people, people of color who have touched us, spiritual teachers, not only from New Thought, but spiritual teachers. And I'm thinking of like Jesus the Christ and Buddha and Muhammad and Krishna and Mother Mary and White Buffalo Woman and Nelson Mandela and Martin Luther King. And so just continue on. I'm going to do it silently, but I'll give you some space to do it on your own. Ashe.
Ashe.
So let us now honor and celebrate those who came before us, those who encouraged us, wiped our tears, believed in us, our ancestors, our elders, our mentors. Let us honor and give thanks and celebrate by saying their names. So I'm going to say mine silently, and I invite you to say those mentors, elders, ancestors who have touched you. Ashe.
Ashe.
And let us now use this opportunity to recommit to not only being an open and welcoming community, but to being an inclusive community. Let us honor, celebrate, and recognize the diverse peoples of the world, our brothers and sisters whose culture, religious teachings, sexual orientation, inventions, and other contributions have made a difference in our lives by saying their names. And so just say their names out loud. I'm going to be saying mine to myself. Let us acknowledge the gift they have given us by their presence, by saying Ashe.
Ashe.
Howard Thurman once said, "Don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive and go do it." Because what the world needs is people who have come alive. I love that. An illustration that I would like to share with you is something that I read in Optimist Daily this past week. It's researchers who came alive in Netherlands and wanted to do something about the wind turbine that had some problems, our usual wind turbines. So they developed a small wind turbine that looks like a flower. They call them flower turbines. They're less noisy, take up less space, and are not a threat to birds or bats. They can be put on buildings, and they look like pieces of art. They're appealing, they're aerodynamic, and they generate renewable energy very safely in urban areas. They're being used right now in the Netherlands and Germany. And they actually produce more energy per square meter than solar panels in windy areas. So ask yourself, as someone's answered prayer, who and what am I called to be and to do today? Today. Just bring it into today. And now say your own name, Kathleen Johnson. Ashe.
Ashe.
I'll put this down. So, can you hear the inner call? You know, as individuals, as a spiritual community, we have a lot to offer the planet. We offer not only our own consciousness, our own presence, we offer spiritual teaching that transforms lives, a spiritual teaching that when we rise up into that state of oneness consciousness is revolutionary in nature, right? It's like it dispels that thing called separation consciousness. It dispels that thing that's called you know, all of these different isms that have caused so much suffering in humanity. So we are here to be the revolutionary healing change on the planet. I'd like you to feel that right now as and repeat after me these beautiful commitments. Today, I commit to honoring those upon whose shoulders I stand. Today, I commit to honoring, Michelle.
Today I commit to honoring
Upon whose shoulders, those upon whose shoulders I stand.
those upon whose shoulders I stand.
Their names and their lives
Their names and their lives
impact my life, and I honor them.
impact my life, and I honor them.
I commit to taking the necessary action
I commit to taking the necessary action
to rise up
and
demonstrate a new level of presence
demonstrate a new level of presence
and creative action
and creative action
that ripples out from where I am and what I do.
that ripples out from where I am and what I do.
I rise up and lead.
I rise up and lead.
I am someone's answered prayer.
I am someone's answered prayer.
And so it is.
And so it is.
Namaste, my friends. Okay, and I would now like to introduce to you Deb, who has a song that goes with this topic. She wrote it just for this topic, and so I'm just so honored to share this beautiful spiritual teaching with you, Deb, and the gifts that you bring.
Thank you. Thank you so much.